The morning sun broke slow over the Wyoming plains, its first light crawling across the gravesite like a thief, too shy to be seen. Clara Holt stood there in her husband's shadow, the mound of earth still fresh, the shovel still upright in the dirt. Eli Holt had been a gunslinger once. Quick hand, quiet voice. The kind of man who could end a fight with a single word or a single bullet, whichever mercy fit the moment. But he'd traded his Colt for a plow, his saddle for a quiet life with her. That peace lasted 6 years. The day Silas Boone came back into their lives, everything ended. Boone, a man Eli once rode with, a devil with a preacher's smile. He'd shown up at their door with blood on his coat and a bounty on his head. Eli helped him, hid him because he said a man deserved a chance to change. Hours later, Boone was gone, and Eli was bleeding out in the dirt. Now the wind sang his eulogy. Clara's black dress clung to her legs as she knelt beside the grave. She reached into her coat and pulled out Eli's revolver, a Colt Peacemaker worn silver, the grip carved with his initials. She thumbed the cylinder, felt the weight. One chamber empty, one life gone. She dropped a single bullet into the soil by his cross. "You died protecting a man who didn't deserve your name," she whispered. "So I'll carry it for both of us, and make him remember what it cost." The horizon was gold by the time she saddled Eli's old mare. She tied her hair, tightened her belt, and holstered the Colt at her side. Behind her lay the past, ahead of her vengeance. As the horse moved into the rising light, the widow rode with the quiet certainty of someone who'd already lost everything. By noon, her trail would cut straight toward Dead River, the kind of town where blood didn't dry before the next man spilled it. And somewhere beyond that dust waited Silas Boone, the man Eli Holt died protecting. Clara Holt wasn't riding for justice. She was riding for truth, and the kind of peace only lead could buy. Dead River wasn't much of a town, just a sliver of dust and whiskey along the trail north. One street, 2 saloons, a sheriff's office, and a handful of people too mean or too tired to leave. When Clara Holt rode in, heads turned. Women didn't ride alone here, and certainly not wearing black with a gun strapped low on her hip. She dismounted in front of the Silver Spur Saloon, tied her horse, and pushed through the doors. The smell hit her first, sweat, smoke, and spilled beer. A piano clinked weakly in the corner, half a tune dying under the weight of conversation. The bartender looked up. Big man, graying beard, eyes that had seen too much. "What'll it be, ma'am?" "Whiskey," Clara said, voice steady. And an answer. That got a few smirks from the nearby tables. One cowboy muttered something under his breath. Another laughed. But the bartender poured her a shot anyway. She tossed it back in one go. "You ever heard of a man named Silas Boone?" The laughter stopped. The room went still like the wind before a storm. The bartender's jaw tightened. "Lady, that's a name folks around here don't speak too loud." "Good thing I ain't folks," Clara replied. He studied her for a long moment, his eyes flicking to the gun on her hip. "Boone's a dangerous man. Owns half the cattle from here to Snake Ridge. Runs his outfit out near Red Mesa. Still runs with the men he used to?" she asked. "Some," the bartender said. "Some are dead. Some wish they were." A chair scraped the floor behind her. Clara turned slow, hand resting on her holster. A tall man stood there, lean and mean, with a scar down his jaw. "You looking for Boone?" he asked, voice lazy but laced with trouble. "Maybe," she said. "Well," he smirked, "you just found one of his boys." Clara's eyes didn't blink. "Then you can tell me what kind of man lets another die for him." The man grinned, but it never reached his eyes. "Lady, you got no idea who you're messing with." She smiled, cold, small. "Then educate me." He moved first, hand for his pistol, but Clara's gun was already out. One shot cracked through the saloon, echoing off the walls like thunder. The man hit the floor before his fingers found the trigger. For a long breath, nobody moved. Then someone whispered, "Boone's not gonna like this." Clara holstered her gun and laid a coin on the counter. "Tell him," she said, walking toward the door. "Tell him the widow's riding." The saloon stayed silent as she stepped into the sun, the sound of her boots fading into the wind. Behind her, men whispered her name like a curse. Ahead, the road to Red Mesa waited, and the first trail of blood had just been drawn. By dusk, Dead River was already a rumor behind her. The sun bled orange across the plains, painting the land in firelight as Clara rode toward Red Mesa. The air carried the scent of sage and storm, and every mile seemed to whisper Eli's name. She stopped when she saw the lone figure ahead, a rider waiting on the trail. His badge caught the fading light. "Sheriff's Star, ma'am," he said, tipping his hat. "You the one stirred up hell back in Dead River?" Clara kept her horse steady. "If you mean the man who tried to draw on me, he's sleeping it off, permanently." The sheriff sighed. He was older, weathered like the land itself. "Name's Sheriff Danner. Word travels fast out here. Fast enough I figured I'd meet you before Boone's men do." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Then you already know why I'm riding." He nodded slowly. "I heard. Your husband was Eli Holt. Hell of a shot. Hell of a fool too, protecting Boone." Her grip tightened on the reins. "Eli believed a man could change, and Boone proved him wrong." Silence stretched between them. Wind rattled dry grass like bones. "You think you're going to make it to Red Mesa and shoot your way through Boone's ranch?" Danner asked finally. "That man's got a small army. Guns for hire and worse. He don't leave witnesses." "I ain't looking to be one," Clara said. The sheriff studied her face, the hollow grief, the fire still burning beneath it. "You're not the first to go after Boone, but you might be the last if you ain't careful." "Then I'd best be quick about it." He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small tin flask. "Take this. It's not for courage, it's for when courage runs out." She didn't smile. "Courage don't run out when you've got nothing left to lose." Danner watched her turn her horse toward the mesa. "You're gonna learn, Mrs. Holt," he called out. "Revenge ain't clean. It don't wash off easy." Clara didn't look back. Neither does blood. The sheriff stayed on the ridge long after she disappeared into the dusk. He'd seen killers, saints, and everything in between. But something about that widow chilled him deeper than any outlaw ever had. She wasn't just riding to kill a man. She was riding to bury what was left of herself. And far ahead, under the rising stars, the lights of Red Mesa flickered, a promise and a warning both. The trail to Red Mesa wound through canyons painted red by time and violence. The kind of place where echoes carried more than sound. They carried memory. Clara set camp beneath a bluff that night. The firelight flickered against the stone, and the crackle of wood became the pulse of old ghosts. She hadn't spoken Eli's name since she buried him. Not out loud, but out here alone beneath the stars, she couldn't stop the flood. She remembered the first time she met him, not in church, not in town, but in a gunfight. It was spring in Abilene, years back. She was working in her father's general store when a man burst in bleeding from the shoulder, dragging another by the collar. "Name's Holt," he said, voice steady despite the blood. "This one tried to rob you. You can keep him." "I'll keep the bullet." She patched him up behind the counter, scolding him for being reckless. He just smiled. "Mom, some men are born for peace," he'd said, "and some of us just try to make it through the noise." She married him a year later, but the noise never stopped. Eli had a past he didn't talk about much, only that he rode once with Silas Boone, back when the West was young and the law was just a rumor. Boone was charm and fire, a man who could talk a snake into smiling. Together, they robbed banks, rode with gangs, and buried more than money in the dirt. Then came the day Eli put down his gun and walked away. Said he was done with Boone and the trail of bodies behind them. Boone laughed and let him go, or so Eli thought. That was before Boone showed up at their door last spring. Clara could still see it clear as the flames before her. Boone's face half lit by lantern light. That easy smile. "Old friend," he said, blood soaking his shirt. "Need a place to lay low." Eli hesitated only a second before letting him in. Clara had felt it even then. Something coiled beneath Boone's charm, something that didn't bleed like other men. By dawn, Boone was gone. Eli followed the tracks out back and found the sheriff's deputy dead in the mud. Boone had shot him to keep riding. Eli rode after him. He never came back. Clara stared into the fire until her eyes burned. That night she made herself remember every scar on Boone's face, every lie in his voice. Tomorrow she would ride through Red Mesa Canyon. And if Boone was the devil, she planned to drag him back to hell herself. The fire snapped, throwing sparks into the dark, like bullets lighting the sky. Clara didn't flinch. She was past fear now. Only purpose remained. Red Mesa came into view just after dawn, a rough sprawl of wood and dust clinging to the base of the red cliffs. The town was richer than Dead River, but not cleaner. It smelled of sweat, gun oil, and cattle. Clara rode in slow, hat brim low, Eli's revolver hung at her side like a promise. She could feel eyes on her, Boone's men, no doubt. Every saloon, every stable, every rooftop seemed to carry the weight of his reach. She found the Copper Queen saloon first, the kind of place where secrets got traded cheaper than drinks. The bartender, a woman this time, eyed her warily. "Ain't many widows ride in armed?" Clara sat at the counter. "Ain't many men worth killing either." The woman froze for half a second before pouring a drink. "You looking for work or trouble?" "Trouble," Clara said softly, "and the man who makes it." The bartender hesitated, then leaned closer. "You mean Boone?" Clara didn't answer, but the silence said enough. "He don't come to town much no more," the woman whispered. "Sends his boys instead. You cross him, you best not miss." Clara nodded, sliding a few coins across the bar. "I don't plan to." Before the woman could reply, the saloon doors burst open. 3 men swaggered in, all with Boone's mark on them, fine coats, cruel eyes. The one in front, with the gold watch chain and the smirk of a man who'd never worked a day honest, spotted Clara instantly. "Well, well," he drawled. "If it ain't the lady who shot my brother in Dead River." The room went still. Clara didn't rise. He drew first. "Funny," the man said, resting a hand on his pistol. "So will I." The first shot shattered a bottle behind her. Clara dropped to the floor, rolled behind the bar, and fired twice. One man went down screaming, clutching his stomach. Another ducked for cover. The gold chain man grinned and kicked over a table for a shield. "You got guts, lady. Eli Holt taught you that?" The name hit her like a slap. Her next bullet answered for her. It tore through the table and caught him in the shoulder. He fell back cursing, gun skittering away. Clara stood, breathing hard, smoke curling from her Colt. "Eli taught me plenty," she said. "Mostly how to finish what he started." The saloon was chaos now. Screams, broken glass, blood pooling on the floorboards. She stepped over the bodies and knelt by the wounded man. "Where's Boone?" she asked. He spat blood. "He's waiting." "Out by the ranch." "Red Mesa Ridge. But he ain't alone." Clara pressed the barrel of her gun against his cheek. "He'll be less alone when I'm done." She stood, holstered the Colt, and tossed a silver coin onto the counter. "For the mess," she told the bartender. Outside, the sky had turned the color of bruised copper. She mounted her horse, wind whipping her veil loose. The widow rode east again, this time toward the edge of Boone's empire. Behind her, the Copper Queen dripped with silence and blood. Ahead, vengeance waited with open arms. The desert stretched endless before her, a sweep of dust and silence broken only by the sound of her horse's hooves. Hours had passed since she left Red Mesa behind, but the smoke from the saloon still haunted her, like the echo of a shot that wouldn't fade. Clara rode hard, faster than sense would have allowed. Her body ached, her lips were cracked, but her mind burned with one name, Boone. By the time she reached the canyon pass, the sun was high and merciless. She didn't see the ambush until it was already too late. Gunfire cracked from the rocks above. Her horse screamed, reared, and threw her hard into the dust. Bullets tore the ground around her as she rolled behind a boulder, hand finding her revolver. 3 riders emerged from the ridge, Boone's men. She recognized one of them from Dead River, the scarred one. "Boone says you made your point, widow," he shouted. "Says you can join your husband now." She fired back twice. One man fell from his horse dead before he hit the dirt, but the others closed in fast. She had 2 bullets left. The scarred man raised his rifle, grin wide and cruel. End of the line. Then another shot split the air, clean, sharp, deliberate. The scarred man dropped without a sound, his hat tumbling beside him. Clara turned, gun still raised. A rider sat on a ridge behind her, tall, lean, coat flapping in the wind. He lowered his rifle and tipped his hat. "You're welcome," he said, voice dry as the dust. Clara pushed herself up, wary. "You always shoot strangers without an introduction?" "Only the ones about to die." He swung down from his horse. His face was weathered, eyes cold but not cruel. "Name's Cade Rourke." She recognized the name. Former lawman turned drifter, a man who once hunted Boone before disappearing off the map. "You're far from town," he said, reloading, "and riding the wrong direction if you want to stay alive." "I'm not after living," Clara replied. He studied her, the blood on her sleeve, the grief in her eyes. "You're Eli Holt's widow." The words hit like a brand. "Was." Cade nodded slowly. "Eli was a good man. Saved my life once." He wouldn't want you riding this trail. Clara holstered her revolver. Then he shouldn't have died on it. Cade exhaled through his teeth. Boone's got 30 men at that ranch. You ride in alone, they'll cut you down before you reach the gate. Then I'll take 30 bullets to get to him. He looked at her a long moment. Then said quietly, You've got fire, Holt, but fire don't care what it burns. The silence hung between them, heavy. Honest, finally, Cade mounted his horse. I can get you close, he said. But after that, you're on your own. Clara met his gaze. That's all I've ever been. He nodded once, and together they rode toward the dying sun. Two ghosts with unfinished wars, shadows stretching long across the red earth. By the time Clara and Cade reached the edge of Boone's land, night had swallowed the desert whole. The Red Mesa Ranch spread below them like a fortress, fences, floodlights, and men posted with rifles. Boone's empire wasn't built on cattle. It was built on fear. They watched from the ridge, silent. Cade handed her a spyglass. Through it she saw the main house. White porch, polished lanterns, and guards at every corner. But what caught her breath wasn't the house. It was the corral beside it. Hanging there, nailed to the fence post, was Eli's old hat. Clara's hands trembled. Cade saw it. He's taunting you. Then he remembers me, she said coldly. Cade turned his gaze back to the lights. Boone keeps his money and his secrets in that house. There's no getting in through the front. I don't need money. You'll need a plan, she gave him a hard look. You said you could get me close. He hesitated, jaw tight. There's a woman inside. Boone's housekeeper, Mary Doss, she's not one of them. She's been feeding me word on Boone's movements for months. Clara studied him. You've been hunting him too. Longer than I care to admit, Cade said. Boone killed my brother. But I ain't got the rage you do. Just patience. Then lend me some, she murmured. That night, under a half-dead moon, they rode down the ridge. Cade led her to a narrow canyon trail behind the ranch, hidden from the watchtowers. They tethered the horses and crept through the brush until the lights were a whisper above them. Mary Doss met them by the rear stable, a thin woman, gray hair tied back, eyes sharp as barbed wire. So it's true, Mary said when she saw Clara. The widow's come. Clara nodded once. I want Boone. Mary's lips tightened. Plenty want Boone. None live long enough to get him. I don't plan on living long, Clara said. Something in Mary's gaze softened. Pity or respect. Then I'll give you a way in. She pointed to the cellar door beneath the house. It leads to the storage tunnels. Boone uses it when he wants to disappear. Cade frowned. That door's locked and guarded. Mary smiled faintly. Not tonight. I'll see to it. But you have till dawn. After that, the ranch wakes up, and the devil you seek will be the one waiting. Clara stepped forward. Why help us? Mary's eyes glistened. Because Boone took my son's life, same as he took your. Husbands. I just never had the guts to do what you're about to. The three of them stood there in the cold. Silence. 3 souls bound by one man's sins. Cade checked his rifle. You sure about this, Holt? Clara drew her revolver, spun the cylinder once. I've been sure since the day I buried him. Above them, the ranch lights flickered like eyes that never blinked. The widow had made her deal. And by dawn, she would either have Boone's blood or her own. The cellar air was thick with dust and whiskey fumes. Clara moved through it like a shadow, boots whispering over the packed earth. Cade followed close, rifle ready, eyes darting through the dark. They could hear footsteps above them, Boone's men patrolling the floors. Every creak in the boards sounded like thunder. Left, Mary whispered, lantern held low. The stairs lead straight up to his study. If he's awake, that's where he'll be. Clara nodded, her heart a steady drum in her chest. They climbed slow, guns drawn, until the light of Boone's office spilled across the stairwell. The room was rich, leather, liquor, polished wood. On the wall hung trophies from 100 hunts, horns, pistols, portraits. And in the center, framed behind glass, Eli's badge. Clara's breath caught. Boone's voice came from behind the desk. I was wondering when you'd come, darling. She turned. He sat there calm, boots on the table, a half-drunk bottle beside him. The years had changed him. White in his beard, lines at his eyes. But the arrogance hadn't aged a day. Silas Boone, she said. The widow Holt. He smiled, slow. You got fire in you, Clara, always did. Eli used to talk about it. Said you were the only thing mean enough to scare him straight. Her jaw clenched. You killed him, Boone chuckled. Did I? Or did he kill himself trying to save a man who didn't need saving? Don't twist his mercy into your lie. Boone stood, reaching for the glass. Eli and me, we were brothers once. He wanted out and I let him go. But when I came to that house, I didn't come to hurt him. I came to warn him. Warn him? Cade asked, rifle leveled. Boone's gaze flicked to him, then back to Clara. There was a bounty on me that night. Marshall had men riding fast. Eli hid me, and when they came knocking, he told them I wasn't there. That's when one of them shot him. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. You're saying you didn't pull the trigger? Boone shrugged. Didn't have to. I left him there, bleeding, dying. Because mercy don't belong to men like us. The truth hit her like a blow, not the clean kind, but the kind that leaves a wound you can't see. Eli had died protecting Boone, and Boone had let him. You could have saved him, she said, voice breaking. I could have, Boone said softly, but that's not who I am. Something inside Clara snapped. Not rage, not grief, but something colder. The next second was a blur, Cade shouting, Boone drawing, guns exploding. Smoke filled the study. Boone staggered back, a crimson bloom spreading across his chest. Clara's revolver still smoked in her hand. Boone looked down, eyes dulling. How you got your truth, widow, he rasped. But it won't bring him back. He collapsed behind the desk. Outside, the ranch erupted and shouts, gunfire, boots pounding the dirt. Cade grabbed her arm. We gotta move. But Clara didn't move, not yet. She looked down at Boone's still body and whispered, No, but it'll stop him from taking anyone else. Then she turned toward the window, toward the fire beginning to rise across the yard, and stepped into the burning night. The fire spread fast across Red Mesa Ranch. Flames licked the dry fences, turning Boone's empire into a glowing skeleton against the night. Horses screamed in the smoke. Men shouted orders that vanished under the roar. Clara and Cade burst through the side door, Boone's blood still on her hands. Gunfire chased them into the open yard, back to the ridge. Cade shouted. They ran, ducking behind the troughs, bullets biting at the dirt around them. Clara reloaded as they moved, each metallic click sharp as thunder. Boone's dead, one of the gunmen yelled. Kill the rest? There were at least 6 of them, his loyal men still clinging to the ghost of their boss. The night turned red and alive with gunfire. Cade dropped one man clean through the chest. Clara hit another in the knee, then finished him before he could scream. They made it as far as the open corral before a bullet caught Cade in the shoulder. He spun and fell, groaning. Clara fired blind until the shooting stopped, then dragged him behind a wagon. Go, Cade hissed, blood soaking his sleeve. This is your ride, Holt, finish it. But she shook her head. You saved me once. I'm not leaving you to die for my vengeance. A shadow stepped through the smoke. Tall, broad, hat low, rifle steady. Boone's foreman, Earl Tully. The last and meanest of them all. You killed my boss, Tully growled. I ain't no widow riding out of here alive. Clara rose slowly, stepping from cover. Then try and stop me. The fire painted her black dress in gold and crimson, her revolver gleaming. Tully spat, rolled his shoulders and drew. The world slowed. Her hand moved before thought. The instinct of grief turned into muscle and flame. One shot cracked through the smoke. Then silence. Tully staggered, dropped his rifle and hit the dirt hard. Clara's breath came ragged. Cade watched her, pain in his eyes, but something like awe too. You did it, he said. She looked down at the burning ranch, at the men who'd built their fortunes on death now swallowed by the same fire. No, she whispered. I just ended what Eli started. They found horses still tied by the gate, wild-eyed and trembling. Cade struggled into the saddle, jaw clenched against the pain. Clara mounted beside him. Behind them, Red Mesa burned to the horizon. As they rode away, the dawn began to break. That same pale light that had seen her bury her husband, now rising again over the ashes of vengeance. She didn't look back. Cade broke the silence. What now, Holt? Clara's voice was flat, distant. Now I ride till the noise stops. The horizon was wide, endless and empty. She'd won. But victory in the west never came clean, and as the wind swept across the plains, carrying the smoke and the last echoes of Boone's empire, Clara Holt became what the frontier always made of its broken hearts. Legend. 3 days after Red Mesa burned, the desert turned silent again. The wind carried only ash now. Boone's empire scattered into dust. His name whispered like a curse that finally lost its teeth. Clara rode slow along the canyon edge. the sun falling behind her, turning the sky the color of old wounds. Cade followed a few paces back, his arm bandaged, his face hollow from pain and sleep. Neither had spoken much since that night. There were no words left big enough for what they'd seen, or done. At a creek bend, Clara dismounted. The water shimmered faintly, the first she'd seen since the fire. She knelt, cupped her hands, and let the cold bite her palms. Boone's blood, Eli's memory, none of it would wash away. Cade joined her, crouching with a wince. "You could head north," he said. "There's land there. No one knows you. You could start over." Clara stared into the stream. "Start what over? A life built on ghosts?" He didn't answer. He just looked at her the way men looked at things they'd never understand, or maybe wished they could. She drew Eli's revolver from her belt, the steel still dulled by soot. For a long while she turned it in her hands. "He carried this to protect Boone," she said quietly. "Now it's only ever taken." Cade's voice was soft. "Guns don't choose who they kill." "People do," Clara nodded, "and people pay for it one way or another." She stood, walked to the water's edge, and dropped the Colt into the creek. It sank with a sound smaller than it should have been. The ripples spread, faded, gone. The wind caught her hair, lifting the black strands like smoke. For the first time in weeks, she breathed without tasting fire. Cade rose beside her. "Where will you go?" "East," she said after a moment. "There's a town there, quiet. They won't know my name." He watched her mount up, every movement steady, deliberate. "You ever think you'll find peace?" Clara looked toward the horizon, vast and open and unknowable. "Peace ain't something you find, Cade. It's something you leave behind." The horse started forward, hooves stirring the dust. She didn't look back at the canyon or at Cade. The west didn't allow goodbyes, only distance. The sun dipped low, setting her shadow long across the land. She was a widow, a killer, a survivor. But more than that, she was something the frontier never forgave. A woman who finished what men started, and somewhere beyond the ridge. The wind carried her story into legend, of the gunslinger's widow who buried her husband at dawn, and rode out to kill the man he died protecting. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more unforgettable tales from me. And make sure to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new episode. Thanks for watching.